Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's Cedarville Stories Podcast. I'm Mark Weinstein, and my guest today spent the summer as an athletic training intern for the Indianapolis Colts of the National Football League. And before that, he was an intern for the Baylor University football and men's basketball teams. When this podcast was recorded this summer, Tyler was going to work at Michigan State University for the Spartans, which we talked about on the program. However, very recently, he changed his plans and is now the assistant athletic trainer for the University of Kansas men's basketball and baseball programs. As you'll quickly learn, Conn brings with him some impressive credentials and a passion for Jesus. And I'm looking forward to sharing his story with you today. Let's go to my conversation with Conn on this week's Cedarville Stories Podcast. Kyler, for those listening and watching today's podcast, which I'm glad that you're on the program for today, but for those who don't know you, can you briefly share with us, a little bit about your background? And I'm really interested also in hearing your faith journey. Can you start us off with that information?
Yeah, of course. Well, first off, thank you for having me on today. I appreciate the opportunity.
Sure.
Like you said, a little bit about my background is recent Cedarville grad. So I attended through 2020 to 2025. Yeah. I was a part of the 3+2 sports medicine and Masters of Athletic Training program. So finished that program this May. Before that, always lived in Ohio. So homegrown, Ohio State fan.
That's okay.
Always been in Ohio. So my family grew up on a farm. Or I grew up on a farm with my family. That's what my family does. So, and then since I have graduated from Cedarville, I'm currently interning with the Colts in Indianapolis as a summer intern with the football team. And then in the fall, I will be up at Michigan State interning with their men's tennis team there. So,
yeah, and we'll get into that more at length. So tell me about when you met Jesus and devoted your life to following him.
Yeah, so I was very blessed to have a family who I was raised in church. Wasn't ever, from day one, I was in church. So what I remember was around age 7. I actually remember, I think the night of when it originally happened. Our parents, we were just doing our nightly devotions in our bedroom with me and my older brother, and I remember starting to ask those questions of, hey, what is being saved? What do I need to do it? And I remember the next day actually going into my then pastor's office, sitting down with him and having that conversation, him sharing, the process, and then going through that prayer and praying and accepting Jesus into my heart at that time. So I was 7 then. And then fast forward to, I would say, going into my freshman year of high school, that summer when I was at church camp, I remember kind of having those usual, I would say most people probably have that at some point in their faith journey of maybe a little bit of doubt once you get a little bit older, since I was only 7, get a little bit older and start wondering like, hey, did I really understand what I was putting my faith in, or did I, just understand the depth of it essentially? So I remember one night during the invitation call at the camp, grabbing my youth pastor at that point, and taking, going outside with him and talking him through that thing. And I remember what he had told me that night was he had those same doubts and thoughts, like his 3rd year in college, when he was in college, to do ministry. And he had those same doubts. And he told me what his kind of mentor at that time told him. And it goes back to just the saying of like childlike faith. It doesn't have to be complex. It's really simple. And he said, whether or not if you truly believed, what you said you believed when you were 7, like he just said, in this moment right now, do you believe, that Christ and his son to die on that cross, rose again on the 3rd day, to cover your sin, and then the rest of, everything else that he did in the book. Right now, do you believe that? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And he said, then that's all that matters. And in that moment, it was as if it's like hit me. It's like so simple. Like it's so easy to have those doubts and worries. But at the end of the day, it's like, I believe that wholeheartedly now. And that was a big moment for me in faith journey. And then going to Cedarville just allowed me to be surrounded by everybody of like faith, and just allowed that faith to prosper in that way.
So now you're away from Cedarville. How are you seeing your faith stay strong? And how are you using your faith, on a daily basis, even through your internship?
Of course, it's definitely more difficult. And I have those days, just whether it's listening to music that kind of sparks memories back from Cedarville,
Okay.
of being like, hey, like, really took Cedarville for granted because it's all around you. Like you don't, you almost have to try to get away from it to get a break, because you're always engulfed in that culture and engulfed in the environment, which is amazing. And then when you're here, it's a very secular environment and it's completely different. So it's, you can almost really be passive about your walk when you're at a place like Cedarville, because you're always surrounded by it. Here, you have to be so much more active and driven and determined to get into the word each day, pray each day, be more attentive to the things that you allow in. So music, TV shows,
Whatever.
things like that.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the day, when you're not in the word, praying, to listening to Christian music, I'm having a lot more of the secular intake than what I had the past few years. So just that, being more attentive with my time with God. And then also I've been able to find a church I've gone to a couple of times past few weeks, or each time that I've been here that's close by, that I've enjoyed, that's similar to the church I went to while I was at Cedarville. So that, and just having, still being around that environment.
Well, I want to encourage you to keep the faith, and even in tough days, in that secular environment, whether it's with the Colts now or Michigan State down the road or wherever else you're going to go, stay close to Jesus. And so let's transition to athletic training. I'm interested in hearing how a young person like yourself got interested in athletic training. What sparked that interest, that passion for you to, one, pursue a degree in it and now do internships?
Yeah, I would say just always being involved and surrounded by the sport culture growing up.
Yeah.
I played sports my whole life.
What did you play?
So when I was younger, I did baseball, soccer, really soccer all the way up through high school,
Okay.
and basketball all the way up through high school. So my parents weren't big fans of football. So me and my brother never got into football. I remember my senior year of high school, I really wanted to do it. And then at that point, I also did soccer. So those are two like similar schedules. It'd be kind of hard to do both those sports at the same time. But it was like my senior year, I was like, I'd probably be learning a lot more than what I'd be able to do on the field. So really just soccer, basketball, and baseball, the majority.
Okay.
And it was just soccer and basketball in high school. So, but I love sports. I love the environment of it, the culture of it, the excitement. Always watched sports growing up. So that was a big thing I remember in high school, my junior, senior year, trying to figure out, hey, what do I want to major in?
Yeah.
If I can still be involved in sports in some way, that would be amazing. And athletic training is probably the best thing to be able to do that, as we're, right on the field, right on the court, with the action, being able to work with athletes and help them achieve their goals and help them perform the best that they can perform is the best thing that I could think that I want to do. There's some days, or I've had the question before, like, if you weren't doing AT, what would you do? And I genuinely have no idea, because it fits me and my personality and what I like to do so well.
Yeah. It's where God has gifted you. And I think that's a great match. So as you have developed personally as a student, as an intern to this date, who are some mentors, or who is a key mentor who has really helped you personally, academically, spiritually?
So it'd be hard to give just one. So if I can give two, I'll give two.
Sure.
And I'll go with one from Cedarville. I'll say Dr. Mike Weller. So he was our program director through my first year, the end of my first year of the MAT.
Okay.
And then he transitioned to full-time being the dean of allied health and psychology of the whole school.
Right.
But he was just always someone who I could tell always believed in me, but also always pushed me to go outside of my comfort zone and do more than, at that time that I probably thought I could do myself. So he was very influential. He taught a couple of our classes, so always loved his classes that he taught.
Okay.
He's just very good at his job, and I always felt comfortable going to him with things, whether it was athletic training skills or like career and life. Like, how should I go about navigating this new process? So he would be one from Cedarville, and then I would go with Joe Smith is his name. So he was my preceptor when I was down in Texas with Baylor football. He was also another one who pushed me a lot. That was my first football rotation, so there's a lot of things that I hadn't experienced or known about working with a football team, just because it's so many guys, it's fast paced. There's so many unique things that goes on a football team. So he did, always push me, called me out when I needed to be called out in front of other people and put me on the spot. And I remember talking with him before, towards the beginning of that internship. And, we had talked through that, like, hey, if he asked me if I'm not doing what I need to be doing, if I need to be called out, like, how do I want him to do that? And I told him, I was like, I'm the type of person where, just because coaches that I've had when I played sports when I was younger, I'm used to it. You can call me out just out in the open, and that's honestly going to get my attention the most.
Yeah.
So he did that when I needed to have that. And that just pushed me in the direction that I needed to go. And I appreciated his push, but also encouragement through the entirety of last summer, and still keeping in touch with him as much as I can. And because he's worked in the NFL in the past, so he's been in those places where I want to be. So he's very beneficial.
Yeah. One thing is good when I hear your story and talking about those mentors, they're setting up a good example for you, for you to be a mentor down the road to those who are coming behind you. So that's a wonderful thing there. So let's move into, athletic training, and specifically, I want to go back a few years in Cincinnati. Buffalo Bills cornerback Damar Hamlin collapsed during a game against the Bengals. We all saw it on national TV, those watching Monday Night Football. And I think that moment had a profound impact on your life and your career. Can you speak to that, and what kind of impact did it have on you?
Yeah, I remember, like you said, the night when it came on, and I don't believe I had it live on the TV when it happened, but I think my parents were watching in the other room. Okay. and heard them, kind of their reaction to it. So I turned it on, backed it up, rewatched it, and just the spotlight that was on it. You could see in between players, the athletic trainers actively doing CPR on Damar Hamlin on the field, in between the players, which was just insane to see that happen. And thank God it was a good result, and he came out on the other end of it, just because you don't see that very often on live TV with millions of people watching. And then, so that was in the spring, early spring. So then when I got into my master's program and we started, having to come up with ideas of what we wanted to do for our research, I remember EAPs came to mind, and because of EAP, you think of
what's EAP? What's EAP?
So emergency action plans. Okay. Which are really blueprints of what sports medicine teams follow in an event like cardiac arrest. Okay. It also could be an event like heat stroke, since it's been super hot out here lately. Any event where it's a catastrophic injury and they need to go to the hospital immediately. We need some type of policy and procedure to say, this is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to call. This is how the EMS is going to get into the facility. So, among other things, it came to my mind EAPs, and of course, Damar Hamlin, and how such like the Bill staff, Cincinnati staff, everybody on the sports medicine team there did exactly what they needed to do in that moment to save his life. And again, thank God that, it was in his will to allow that to happen, because sometimes you can follow that EAP to a T and it still might not be the outcome that we want. So just seeing their reaction to it and how well they did their job is what drew me to like, hey, I did my research on a collegiate level, but how do these sports medicine teams line up with their, are they preparing adequately to be able to have that same type of outcome, even though it doesn't always correlate with a good outcome?
Yeah, there's no guarantee. And so in talking with Dr. Mike Weller earlier, this research that you did on EAPs led to a national award for you. What was this award? And he tells me that you are the only one in the country to receive the award, so it's very prestigious. Tell us about that, could you?
Yeah, so the award comes through the NATA Foundation. So NATA, the National Athletic Trainers Association, Research and Education Foundation. So it's a sector of the NATA that essentially supports and spins out scholarships, grants for research to happen. So it's encouraging more research to happen in the athletic training field in hopes of advancing the profession, advancing knowledge, all those things. So they put on a student writing contest, or they sponsor a student writing contest each year, which is open nationally across the nation for all athletic training students, master athletic training students, and also doctorate athletic training students to submit their research that they completed to the writing contest. And they have 3 categories. So they have the best original research, which is what I submitted mine to, and was able to win that one. It was a surprise that I wasn't expecting to have it, just because it is a nationwide one. So each category just has the one winner. Submitted it to that really because I had already written the research for class, and I just had to make a few kind of format changes to submit it to the contest, and was lucky enough to win that. So
when you think about that research thesis, are there some best practices for athletic trainers to use that you had in your research that maybe you're using or other people are using today?
Yeah. So the NATA publishes position statements among a couple other statements. And essentially position statements are based off of best available evidence, what you should do in an incidence of heat stroke, what you should do for even like cold injuries, cardiac arrest. And they put a position statement out in 2002 on EAPs. So this position statement in 2002 was talking about best practices in creating EAP. So what you should have in your EAP, what, how you should structure it, things like that. So that's what my research was over. So in 2002, they included about 12 to 13 points of what you need in that EAP. Some are just have the EAP. So just, basic, you should have a written one. It should be posted at each venue where sports take place. There should be, a list of phone numbers of staff, so that if sometimes you have athletic trainers who work an event who aren't always there, they should be able to know what phone numbers they need to call in case of an event, aside from 911. Equipment that's on site is also another point. There's a number of other points as well, but essentially gave 12 or 13 points of what should be included in an EAP. So those are what the position statements kind of point out.
So has your research opened any doors for you? Did it help you maybe get an internship with the Colts? I don't know. Did it have any benefit to you other than being the award winner?
Not necessarily internship wise, I would say. There was a lady who reached out who had her son had gone through a cardiac arrest and passed, I want to say around 20 years ago. And she reached out after reading the article and wanted to just talk through the article that I had written. And Dr. Weller and Dr. Ken Blood, who's now the current director of the athletic training program there at Cedarville, also joined the call. So we were able to have just a private four of us conversation about her experience with her son, her research that she'd done in the EAP area in cardiac arrest, and really that was very beneficial to me, just to sit down with someone who's gone through something that I've never gone through. I pray that I'll never have to go through it, just losing a child like that. So that was beneficial for me, just to hear her story and kind of put in perspective of just life, like the things that people go through that we don't think about every day. And just to remind, these athletes that I'm working with every day, there's so much more to them. They go home to families, and you don't know what that family life is like, whether they're in high school, whether they're in college, whether they're in the pros. They all have things that you don't know about them. So having that conversation with her was beneficial, just in that way, to remind myself, like, hey, I wrote this research and was very graciously lucky enough to win the award. But even aside from that, she was very grateful that I had written it, and I didn't even expect it to have that impact. So being able to hear that from her was beneficial enough.
Was that Joy Waymiller from Hope 100.7?
Yes.
In Dayton. And we talked about, she called me and she wanted to get connected with you because I didn't know her story of that. They had lost a child. And I know in talking with her after you talked with her, you and Ken and Mike, just how meaningful that was for her and how you ministered and cared for her. So that was really kind and gracious of you. Let's continue down the path of the internship. So you've had some really incredible opportunities, 2 opportunities at Baylor, football and men's basketball, right now with the Indianapolis Colts. And once you leave this position, you're going to Michigan State for athletic training for tennis. As you prepare to go to Michigan State, what are some lessons you've learned from the team at Baylor and then the Colts that's going to help you with Michigan State and beyond?
I would say the biggest lesson that I've learned overall from both places is really take pride in your work that you're doing with the athletes.
Okay.
It's more prevalent at the Colts because of being a summer intern. We don't get as much opportunity to work directly with the guys just because we have other responsibilities. And of course, the full-time staff has those connections with them.
Right.
So when you get a chance to work with a guy one-on-one, it doesn't come around very often. So it's like, take advantage of the time that you have with them, focus on, whatever skill that, or technique that you're using to work on, whether it's treatment, whether it's rehab, or whether it's just simply talking to them and getting to know them beyond the sport, and building a relationship with them. So that's the biggest thing I've learned, especially this summer, just because those opportunities are a little bit less than what I've had in the past. Just taking pride in, I might only work with one guy today, but I'm going to do my best so that the next time he walks in, he wants to come to me and ask for help. So taking pride in my work, and just working hard, honestly. I think that's can almost be a cliche sometimes, but it's a true difference when you really take pride in your work ethic and you're just always moving around, always doing what you need to do. Work ethic.
So I do want to talk about your time with the Colts, but before we get there, let's stay with Baylor. So men's basketball and football. Is there a story? Is there a player? Is there a coach story that comes to mind that really encapsulates a great experience down in Waco, Texas?
It's hard to go with one. I would say, I had, was lucky enough to get a lot of opportunities to work with a lot of different guys down there.
Yeah.
I would honestly say my greatest takeaway from that and working with the players would be going to church with some of those guys.
Really?
To be honest with you, and not even, some of them weren't even coming in for treatment or rehab.
Yeah.
Just building relationships with those guys and then seen them on Sunday. There's a good group of them who go to the church that we went while we were down in Waco, and be able to sit with them. And again, it's just taking, going beyond just the job and going beyond just the sport, and being able to worship with these guys on the team, and to learn more about them. I would say that's probably the biggest one. And then seeing, when I came back up to Ohio, really the Baylor football team almost had to a similar level of what Ohio State, remember this past season, where a lot of the Ohio State guys were holding kind of worship nights. And, the Baylor had a lot of guys on their team this year. They had a post about, they had, some baptisms in the facilities, cold or pool, the facility, and seeing that, and just knowing that those guys' hearts, they're really working to witness to their other teammates. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. I know that's not necessarily athletic training, but
but that's life.
That plays a role.
Right,
Yeah,
that plays a role. That's life. And so, like, what's Coach Drew like? Because he seems like a quality coach and a quality person.
Yeah, he's been there 20 plus years. He's a great guy. I'm pretty 100% sure he's a believer. And just the way he carries himself, I would support that fact.
Yeah.
You can tell he loves the team. He loves his guys. He brings the energy. He gets on them when he needs to, but he's a great coach, believer. And I had a great time working with the basketball team down there too.
So when let's go over to what you're doing now with the Colts. So what are your responsibilities with the Colts? I know before we started recording, you talked about moving a lot of equipment from one training camp to another. But what are your day-to-day jobs? And have you had the opportunity to interact with any of the players during mini camp, OTAs, and et cetera?
Yeah. So when we're in mini camp, in OTAs, so when players are actually there and we're practice days. We're practicing. A lot of the times we're coming into the facility, kind of turning the modalities on. So turning equipment on, getting things just cleaned up and looking good before the players start to get in there. And then usually we'll have a treatment time in the morning. So guys are coming in. That's kind of our big rehab time for guys who get the work in that they need to. Some guys come in and just get, might just be some feel good treatment is what we call it. Stretching, massage, stuff like that. So we're allowed to help in that aspect of the treatment. We can, bring guys through rehab. We're not writing their programs, but we can bring them through and work with them at that. So I've had, a good bit of being able to do that with guys and a number of guys. So that's kind of your time where you can talk to them, build a relationship to them, get to know them, their story and where they're coming from and all that. And then around mid-morning, depending on what time practice starts, we go up and set up for practice. So we're filling all the water coolers, water bottles, taking them out to the field, setting all that up. And then by the time we get in from setting up the field for practice, we might have a little bit of dead time, but usually there might be like inventory. So we do a lot of inventory as the summer interns. So there might be some inventory that we need to do. There might be, sometimes we're taking guys to doctor's appointments. Really just, there's a lot of miscellaneous things that summer interns do. And then around an hour before practice, guys come in for their pre-practice stuff. So they're either getting taped. Some guys just have routines, like they want to come in and kind of get warmed up and go through some treatment just so they're feeling good right before they get out to practice.
Yeah.
That's usually the big pre-practice rush. I enjoy that time because it's, music's usually playing, guys are coming in, high energy, joking around. So that's kind of the big, busy, crazy part of the day. And then we're out for practice. After that, you'll have post-practice treatments, kind of recovery stuff, usually at that point of the day. And then, once that kind of filters out, you'll have maybe an hour or two then of kind of a little bit of, not necessarily dead time because we'll always have something to do. But then you'll have dinner and then that kind of wraps up the day. So that's kind of what the daily schedule looks like for OTAs. And then when camp starts, it's a whole nother animal. Camp days are long days.
Yeah, very long days. So have you been able to connect with any of the players or do they kind of keep you at a distance except for just the professional aspect of your work?
No, they don't, I wouldn't say they keep us at distance. They're very, I mean, even the staff themselves have some real good relationship with some of the guys. You know, some
Yeah.
guys play on a team their whole career. So some of the staff will go out, and play golf. They're big golfers here, at the
Yeah.
Colts. So some of the staff will go out and play golf with the guys, go out and grab dinner maybe on a Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
I haven't done that. I don't think any of the summers have done that. That's more the staff.
Okay.
But in terms of within the training room, yeah, interactions, they're cool with us.
Good.
You know, it's big on, it's really a time thing. You know, it takes guys, they've been in the league, even if they're rookie, they've been playing football for their whole life.
Right.
They know what they want. And if they've been here at the Colts for a couple of years, they have a specific person here that they want what they want from.
Right.
So it really just takes time for us as summers and even the seasonal interns, just building a relationship and
Right.
them to get to know you.
Yeah.
And them to kind of really, it's really an interview every day because they want to know if you know what you're supposed to before they're like, yeah, you can, work with me essentially. So
Yeah.
it takes time.
You're developing that trust, and when you get that
100%.
trust, then you're good. So as you think ahead to what you're going to be doing at Michigan State, working with the tennis program, what excites you most? Being, and I'll say this in a fun way, being an Ohio State fan, how can you work for Michigan State and do your job well?
Yeah, that's I remember when I was sending my internship applications out, there was one for that other school in that state.
You can
that I
say
didn't
it.
even,
You can
I,
say
I,
it.
it hurts me as much as I'm talking about like moving up there because I'm having to say the word so much more often now.
Sure, Michigan.
Yeah, it kills me. I'm really excited about being up there, and the biggest thing I'm excited about is really just being able to be, I'll be certified, licensed, and it'll just be me. So it's just me with the men's tennis team. There's 8 to 10 guys on the team.
Yeah.
And it's just me. So it'll be,
That's great.
I graduated in May, but of course the internship this summer, I'm not in the position where, I'm making the plans, the guys are all coming to me. I'm not at the head position. Men's tennis, it'll be me, and I'll be handling everything that the guys need. So I'm excited just to be able to fully step into full-time role. I can decide what I want to do and start implementing things and programs that I want with the guys to see, help them perform the best they can. So that's really what I'm most excited about.
Well, you should be. That's going to give you great experience. And who knows, that could lead to your career could be at Michigan State, right? It really could. It really could. And let me say this, because there was a guy behind me in high school a year or two out. He was an avid Ohio State fan. This was up in Northern Ohio. Avid Ohio State fan. He went on to become the head athletic trainer for football at the University of Michigan. He's still there.
Yeah.
And Paul Schmidt's his name. So it can happen. Yeah. It can happen. And just embrace the moment and let all the foolishness go away and just do your job to the best of your ability and honor God, and that'll be great. So as I close, let me ask you this question. So obviously we talked about at the very beginning your faith journey. We talked about your career so far in athletic training. How do you intentionally try to weave your faith in with your profession? Because you're in a secular environment, so you don't want to be ashamed or bashful of it, but you have to be careful too. So how do you do that?
I think it starts with just how you carry yourself.
Okay.
And it's simple things like speech, just watching what you say. I think your work ethic, like I touched on earlier, goes hand in hand with that. If you're lazy and you're not doing what you should do, then people aren't going to like you in general. But that also isn't lining up with what the Bible says believers should do. So I think speech, actions, and then like you said, kind of not being bashful. An example that could just be when you come in on Monday and people say, "Yeah, how was the weekend?" Or like, "What'd you do yesterday?" It's real simple to just be, "Well, Sunday I went to church in the morning," and then that's a very simple way of just like inserting that. And it could be a way that you kind of spark a conversation off of that, like, where'd you go? Or you could ask them, like, do you go to church? Invite them to church. People are usually, obviously some people aren't the most receptive with that, but usually you can throw that question out. And there's guys on the team. I've seen one or two guys walk into the church that I've been at. So there are believers, obviously I would say we're outnumbered in the secular environment, but there are believers in the facility and surrounding areas. And really the church, the way I got introduced to the church where I'm going now in Indy was the head strength and conditioning coach at the Colts. He ran into him just in passing one day, introduced myself, asked where I went to school. I said Cedarville, and he's like, he had heard of it.
Really?
And then he's like, I assume you're a believer. And I said, yes. And he's like, well, you should come to College Park Church is the name of it. I was like, I'll give it a try. And I've enjoyed each week that I've been there. So just carrying yourself, not doing the things that you shouldn't do, and keep, those boundaries that you have set for yourself. Just stand strong in those boundaries and don't let yourself overstep them. Because once you overstep them, it's done, and you can't take that back, and you can't talk yourself out of it and explain. So just holding those boundaries and standing strong in those boundaries is the biggest thing.
Well, I'm looking forward to following your career as best I can. I think your future is bright as you pursue your passion to help train the athletes, serve Jesus in the process. And I wish you the best as you finish your internship with the Colts and then move on to East Lansing with the Spartans. So, Kyler, thanks for your time today. Thanks for joining me this week on the Cedarville Stories Podcast. Thank you for listening to the Cedarville Stories Podcast, brought to you by Cedarville University. Be sure to come back next week when we'll share another Cedarville story for God's glory.